Hello, triathletes and triathlon fans. Ryan here, SethBasedTriathlon.com. In this video, we're going to do some quick tips talking about how to be fast on race day by managing hydration and nutrition. Because a lot of people think it doesn't really maybe matter. The days before a race only matters on race day, and that could be further from the truth. So unfortunately, what you do the days, the weeks leading up to race day, and what you do on race day as far as nutrition and hydration will greatly affect the outcomes on race day and how you feel and how you perform. So we're going to jump right into it, and we'll just go down, read through any questions, or read through all the tips. If you have any questions, you put them in the comments later. You see us later on Facebook and YouTube. I'll get notifications. I'll address any questions that you might have, or if you have any recommendations or things you think I've missed I should put in there in the future, let me know. Number one, avoid diuretics and fiber on race day. A lot of people like to drink their coffee in the morning, which is fine. Just don't go overboard because that will make you pee off your fluids as fast as you can talk. And then also fiber. A lot of people want to eat fiber in the morning on race day. Highly recommend against doing that because the last thing you want to do is spend extra time in the porta potty because you're already going to be there anyway because nerves are going to get you and you're up moving early in the day and you want to kind of get that out of the way before race day, especially with 7.3 or an Ironman distance race. You don't want to even have to be messing with that during the race day. So avoid copious amounts of diuretics and fiber on race day, probably the day before as well, because you don't really need to worry about having the colon cleanse down on race day because it's just not very fun if you have flushed the system out early in the day with fiber because it's going to compound the effects of it as you get closer to race day and you're going to be spending a lot of time in the porta potty in the race morning. So don't do it on race morning. Number two, 2 days before your race, the most important factor will be water. So don't forget about staying hydrated leading up to the race because you're going to do bike drop off, your gear drop off, bike check in, race check in, all this other stuff, especially at the 70.3 Ironman distance races. You could be out hanging out in lines in the sun. It could be warm on race day. You're out looking at the Ironman Village. You're doing all these little sightseeing things, going around. And the last thing you're thinking of is, hey, I'm going to get a bottle of water. I'm going to have it with me at all times. I want to make sure I'm staying hydrated. And then you also have to go to the restroom a lot too because you're being hydrated and maybe you're out and about and you don't have access to restrooms, which isn't wholly accurate because the Ironman Village, they're going to have porta potties open for you. There's usually restaurants and other things that have restaurants that are going to be available for you. So just make sure days leading up to the race, you're making sure you've either got your sports drink, your water, something, you're staying hydrated, and you're not getting dehydrated, pardon that interruption, on the days before the race because then trying to play catch up on race morning is definitely not going to help out very well. Number three, the day before the race, be aware of water intake. So this kind of goes in with that as well. So make sure, 2 days before you're really paying attention, that day before you're super paying attention. You're not going overboard because we don't be overhydrated, but you're taking in water, you're taking in fluids, you're also taking in nutrition. You're not going overboard or anything like that. The whole carb load the night before a race is a little bit of a farce because you'll process it and you kind of get rid of it the morning of before the race, and it may not be a readily available carb source before or right as you're doing the race. So don't go overboard the day before on food. Don't go overboard the day before on water, but don't dehydrate yourself. So the old adage goes, if you pee and it's kind of a little bit yellowish and almost to clear, you're pretty much in the clear as far as hydration goes. Number four, race morning is where it matters. So a lot of people get up, they get their gear ready, maybe get a little bit of breakfast in or something like that, and they don't necessarily focus. You got your fluids you're going to put on the bike, but they forget about taking extra fluid that you can just sip on during the morning. From the time I get up to the time I start the race, usually they got a jug of Gatorade or a bottle of water or something like that, a disposable water. So the target is to have that all drank before I get out there and start the race day. Usually they got trash cans right before you jump in the water, especially Ironman races and Ironman 70.3. Make sure that it's all drank and empty and then put it in the bottle because, hey, everybody does it. Pee in your wetsuit while you're out on the swim. Everybody does it. So if you're hydrated and you have to pee, do what you can out there in the water. Get the transition, and usually there's porta potties in transition. You can also do it there as well. But make sure you are staying hydrated the morning of as well, because as we all sleep, we get dehydrated. You lose up to a pound of water just sleeping, breathing through your mouth. You lose the fluids. even though you may not get up and go to the bathroom. So just make sure that you are staying up to speed with hydration race morning as well, because you're going to start this race. You don't want to start dehydrated. That will definitely affect your performance in the race. Number 5, you would be surprised with the swim start. So you just got to pay attention that the swim start moves fast. I mean, by the time you get there, you get set up and you're kind of pill farting around a little bit. All of a sudden, boom, they're putting people in the water, especially 70.3 Ironman distance races. They're putting you in the water. It's they're looking to get you out there as fast as possible. Don't think, well, there's like 1,300 people here and they're letting us in 3 to 4 at a time. It's going to take hours. No, 30 minutes usually is their target. 30 to 45 minutes is usually their target. Get everybody off the beach or wherever and into the water, off the dock, whatever, into the water and out there swimming. So don't get caught off guard. You're showing up, you got all your stuff packed or unpacked, you got transition set up, and you show up to the swim start, and then you're caught off guard. They're like, okay, get in the water. You're like, whoa, I haven't even, drank any water. I'm totally dehydrated. It's not a good situation. Make sure that you are taking your time and getting set up and getting everything accounted for. You've got your schedule, your plan of action in your head that you're accomplishing as you go through race morning, and one of those should be sipping on your water and staying hydrated, making sure you've got your pre-race snacks, your breakfast, anything you're going to do 30, 45 minutes before the race, just have that little extra boost, whether it be a gel or a snack bar or anything like that. Make sure you have your plan. Make sure you're executing it before the swim start. Number 6, when you're on the bike, you need to take into account race day conditions. So a lot of people have their plans for hydration, nutrition, kind of all set up in their mind. But once they get out there, they don't take into effect. Maybe it's too cold, so you don't need as many fluids because you're not sweating as much. Maybe it's a little bit warmer than you thought it was. Maybe you're sweating a little bit more than you thought you would. So you have to be able to adjust on the fly, especially with nutrition. Because if it gets hot, usually we don't want to eat, but sometimes you're going to need to get some extra calories in, especially on the bike ride, to make sure you're setting yourself up for a successful run, because running in the heat, you definitely not want to take any food in probably. And nutrition is hard to come by. It's hard to digest. And if you're not making sure you're staying up with your fluids as well, your digestive system just will kind of stop working on you because you don't have fluids to help you digest and get it through the system. And as you're running, all the blood flow will go to the muscles and it kind of goes away from the stomach. You won't be able to process foods as well as before. So it's all just a snowball effect. So if you do not stay up, if you get behind on the bike course, it's going to be hard to stay up on the run course. So make sure that you are staying up to speed with doing your due diligence to stay up with conditions and changing as you go through. Number 7, on the run, is it increasingly more difficult for your body to really take anything in. So I kind of went over that already. So as you're going through the run course, especially if it's warm, all the blood flow goes to your muscles, especially your jostling around. The bike course is a little bit less so because it's more focused on your legs, but on the run, everything gets involved, and it takes a lot more effort and energy to propel yourself to go down the course, especially if it's hot. You're going to get to a situation where if you're not staying up with your nutrition and hydration, it's going to affect your performance, your muscles, your stomach, everything's going to be like, I protest, I give up, I'm not going to go anymore, and it's just going to make you, it's going to become mind over matter to make yourself keep going on that run course, and it could get into a dangerous situation if you're not staying up with your hydration and nutrition. So run course, it gets increasingly more difficult, so you got to make sure you play that game on a bike especially. Number 8, the run is going to be a game of hydration. Once you start that run, you're already going to be dehydrated. Hopefully your target is 2 to 3% dehydrated off the bike, because you will probably not stay ahead of hydration even on the bike, even if it's a cool day. So make sure that you're only minimum or maximum 2 to 3% dehydrated when you start the run. And as you run, you're going to sweat and you're just going to lose hydration, or you're going to lose fluids in the body, and you got to keep up with hydration. So it's just going to be a game of attrition as far as keeping your body hydrated to make sure that you have enough fluids in your body to keep going on the course and make sure you're staying in a safe condition. Number 9, approach the run as a situation to hold on until the finish. Personally, I like to get to that finish line feeling like I've left everything on the course. So in order to do that, it's going to be a very fine balancing act of hydration and nutrition. Hopefully you're taking into account when you're going out there doing your training rides, your long training rides, your long training runs, making sure that you get that dialed in to where on your training you can still function afterwards, and it's not, you didn't get to death's door by the time you got to the end of that 20-mile run. You're like, oh my gosh, I just barely survived that. Hopefully you're getting to the end of that 20-mile run being like, I probably could have done another mile or two and been in a pretty good spot. So make sure that you are doing your training appropriately. So on race day, you're going to peak as much as possible, and you're going to maximize whatever you can as far as nutrition and hydration getting to that finish line. Number 10, my biggest breakthroughs were focusing on nutrition, hydration, and avoiding getting caught up on time goals. There's been certain situations, Chattanooga, heat index almost got to 100 degrees one year. Basically threw any time goals out the window, and it was just a matter of getting to the finish line and finishing. Because if you go out there and you go by time goals, even if you're staying up with your hydration, nutrition, if the conditions change on you, you're not factoring this in, because just adjusting hydration and nutrition alone probably will not get you to the finish line when you're out there at 100 degrees and you're running around and there's no shade, there's hills, all these other factors out there. You're going to have to adjust, unfortunately, your level of effort you're putting out there. Your speeds are going to suffer. Your average times are going to suffer. You're not going to make your time goals if it's going to be 100 degrees out there. I'll just tell you that right now. Now, everybody else is suffering too, so comparatively speaking, there's some opportunities to be competitive out there. But compared to trying to get out there and get a PR on the same course you did when it's 74 degrees for a high versus 100 degrees, it's not gonna happen out there. So just make sure when you're out there, you're not focused on making times, average speeds, average paces, average swim times. You don't get totally focused on that, because if you get focused on that, you lose sight of the hydration nutrition game. You get out there and you get behind, and then you just dig yourself in a hole, and that's where dangerous situations happen, where you have to hit medical, or you even have to DNF a race because you could not go any further in the race and you had to pull the plug. So make sure that you're focused on hydration, nutrition, and then also paying attention to conditions out there, because that will dictate more than anything how your race will go and how you feel at the finish line. I know I talk kind of fast. This wraps it up. If you have any comments or questions, put them in Facebook, YouTube. Also, if this helped you out, give it a like on Facebook. If this helped you out on YouTube, give it a like, give it a subscribe, hit the bell notifications. If it didn't, put in the comments why. I like to make these educational as much as possible. And if they don't help you out, there's really no point in doing these videos. So I'd like to make them as helpful as possible. So with that, I want to wrap up this video. Hopefully this helped you out. We'll see you in the next video.